All right. Tomorrow we will start with the guided meditation on metta. So we'll start with a talk for tonight, and we'll see where it goes from here. Yeah. Actually, I don't want to confuse you with too many meditation. One meditation is not that easy. Vipassana is not that easy. But metta is also good because sometimes it helps the mind to settle down. For some people, it settles down a little bit better. For some people, some yogis may not have that much effect. So it all depends. So tomorrow we'll start with the guided meditation. So tonight we'll start off with the Dhamma talk. Now, in all forms of meditation, especially Buddhist meditation, for you to be able to do a meditation in the right manner, no matter which meditation you are doing, first of all, you must learn how to set up the mindfulness. Without mindfulness, the next step, if you are going to do your meditation, is going to be something is going to be wrong. Something is going to be not right. Something is you are going to sway out of the original path or of the intended goal of the meditation. Without mindfulness, you go in that way. When I say that, when you go in swaying in the wrong way, there are many things, countless ways that you can go wrong. Some people they try to meditate, and then after they go cuckoo. Why? Exactly, no mindfulness. Yeah. Or sometimes they meditate, and then they thought that they already achieved their goal of the meditation. But sometimes there's a lot of desire inside there, but not mindfulness. In the sense that sometimes they meditate, they thought that, oh, I see some lights, Oh, I see some peace and joy. And then they go and attach to it without realizing you crave for it. And your whole meditation is nice. You sit down very quietly, you sit there, you feel good, and you do it for years, thinking that you are right. You are not mindful anymore, but you are just craving, delighting in that type of lights or peace. If you have mindfulness, then you already know that this is light. This is light. This is because mindfulness is a wholesome mental state. It cannot mix with an unwholesome mental state. It's either your mind is wholesomely aware of what is going on, or you do not know what is going on, and therefore you sway out from your path. Yeah? You sway out from your path. So therefore, it is important for us to know the characteristic of that mindfulness, the nature of that mindfulness. Now, if you do not know that mindfulness, you're going to have, when it arises, you don't even know that it's there. Or you think that it's there, or you conceptualize it that it's there, but it is not. You think that it is kind of mindfulness, but it's not. Because many yogis also they have met in the past, and also will be in the future or even now. That yogis that they tend to, like for example, they go into a meditation practice. They get into a lot of concentration. The mind is so focused. And they thought that they are mindful. Whereas that can be concentration, but not mindfulness. So they don't realize that what is what inside the mind, because this is something intangible, something you cannot touch. It's all in the mind. It's all in the heart. And if your mind is not sharp enough, not clear enough, we cannot able to differentiate between what is, like for example, mindfulness that arises, or even concentration that arises, or even that the desire that arises, and many different states of mind. So you must know where to look for it. And also, when it arises, you know it. Not only you must know it, but you must know how to arouse it so that it arises. That particular mental state of mind. Okay? And that is important. I mean, we can conceptually know, a lot of people know about mindfulness, but when it comes to practice, they do not know how to arouse it. They do not know how to bring about that mindfulness. Yeah. So your skill here, one of the skills here is to able to bring about that mindfulness. You come in with a meditation. I mean, perhaps you don't have much of mindfulness. Because when you are at home and you are doing your job, you are rushing in life. There's not much of mindfulness. Even sometimes you stay in a temple also. There's not much of mindfulness because there's a lot of things to do. So what we want is that you can able to arouse that mindfulness clearly. This is the first thing. Second thing is that you must able to sustain that mindfulness for a period of time in order for your practice to progress. To set up mindfulness is one thing, but you cannot progress yet. But it's the sustainability of that mindfulness that brings about the progress in the vipassana meditation. The second one is difficult. First one, not too bad. First one is, just take, for example, like today. You meditate. You walk. You sit, hopefully. How much clarity of your mind do you have before it goes into thinking or go into sleepiness? Or your mind goes into a lot of wandering mind and it wanders off. How long? And how long were you caught into it? You see? As much as you sit there, externally look, wow, excellent mind, excellent yogi. But inside there, you're not here. Yeah? You're not present. So it is difficult. You come back to your object for a while, but after that it disappears. Yeah? Yeah. So here mindfulness is a wholesome mental state. Now that wholesome mental state, as you go into deeper, we can actually see that how it becomes more, the clarity of the mind becomes more, you can actually feel its wholesomeness. Because that time, when there is for example, there's aversion or anger that arises, and when the mindfulness arises, you can see that the anger disappear or the aversion disappear, and the mindfulness comes in. Then that time you can able to feel the difference between what is wholesome and what is unwholesome state of mind. So we don't worry about that. But at least we know that you're cultivating a wholesome mental state. Next part of that mindfulness, the next thing about mindfulness is that mindfulness is a present mental state. A present mental state. But a present mental state is not everything that you're present, then you're mindful. It's a very narrow window. What mindfulness as a present mental state is a narrow window. It's not everything about being present, then you are mindful. Yeah? And supposing, let's before we talk about what is the present, we talk about what is not mindfulness. At least you must know. What is not mindfulness is when you start planning in your meditation. Simple. You meditate, after that you go into fantasizing about the future. What are you going to go back, what are you going to do, what are you going to plan, what are you going to eat, what are you going to go here and there. And also you go back into the past. Like you go back into your memory. Oh, I've done this, I've done that. Oh, I've done this, and then you recreate the whole story in your head, in your mind, in your heart. Yeah? And sometimes like you feel like you're immersed into it. Yeah? So that those things, they are not mindful anymore. Yeah? You're inside the story. Yeah? You're inside the story. Yeah. Yeah. So when you're inside there, when you got immersed into those things, then you are not mindful. Yeah. And if you walk, then you saw somebody passing through, then you forget. And your mindfulness also fly away too. Yeah, so easy, Or you walk, you walk and then lifting, pushing, dropping, then you start to see other yogis. What are they doing? Let me see. Mindfulness gone. For a short while, I know. Yeah. So, very easy for the mindfulness is just to disappear. Yeah. This is not mindful anymore. You start to conceptualizing. You start a lot of thinking about it. So, if you go back into the past, you go into the future, these are not mindfulness. Yeah? But you come to the present. Again, here in the present, the state of present also is a very narrow, as I said, is a narrow window. Yeah. You argue with somebody, you get angry. You cannot argue with them in the past. You go, oh, no, you mean this is an argument, a debate, or whatever that you are going through. It happens in the present. So, but that time, your mind is filled with anger. So, although it's in the present, but it's not mindfulness. Yeah? And you are, for example, or another thing that you are greedy about something. You are attached to something. You want to eat. Yeah? Very much in the present. But that is also not mindfulness. Yeah? Or sometimes you do a lot of things like, for example, at home, we just open the door casually, and we just go in, we sit down, we take our shower, we change our clothes. Although your mind is in the present, again, those are not mindfulness. If it's mindfulness, we don't have to come back, we don't have to come to a retreat. Yeah? So those are not mindfulness. Present state of mind, but not mindful. Yeah. So mindfulness is more narrow. The narrowness here, it's called not only just mindful, but it's heightened awareness. It's more of a heightened awareness that you begin to observe or to notice more carefully, and extra power into it, extra awareness into it, not just like everyday awareness. Nowadays there are meditation that they talk about mindfulness. Yeah? Sometimes they sit down, they walk around, just enjoy the fresh air, the coolness, and they drink a cup of coffee, then they watch the birds fly. So present, so nice. I'm mindful. That is not really mindful. Perhaps sometimes maybe a little bit, but that is not the mindfulness that we are looking for. We are looking for a more heightened awareness type of mindfulness. Yeah. And you've got to make the effort, mental effort to make that mental effort in order to arouse that type of clarity of mind. Yeah? Yeah. Take for example, during your lunchtime or breakfast time, you eat. Now some of you are eating like you are eating at home. You take something and you take everything. That is not how a yogi eat. A yogi don't eat in this way. A proper yogi don't eat in this way. Yeah? When we eat, we heighten up the mind. That means, in other words, perhaps you need to slow down your eating. Don't worry about the time. Don't worry about the time. What is important is the mindfulness here. Yeah? When you scoop, for example, something on your plate, yeah, then you have to have that heightened alertness. You know that you are scooping. Yeah, you know that you are scooping. Then, if it's good, you put the labeling there. Scooping, or taking, or stretching, if you're stretching your hands. Then you bring it to your mouth slowly. You bring it to your mouth slowly with full awareness. Then you're aware of it. Then here, slowly put down your spoon or put down your fork. Then you start munching. You start biting. You start tasting or savoring the food. Everything that you do here as you bite, you observe it. You're aware of it. You take note of it. Biting, chewing. Then sometimes when you do that, you feel it, whether it's like hot, or maybe cold, or maybe there's spiciness, or maybe it's quite plain, or sometimes you may notice that something is hard, something is soft. So your full awareness there. Not while you're eating, If you do it while you're eating, then you're still like moving your food around, looking for what's underneath that thing that's covering. Then you're not mindful. You're not alert. So everything that you do, like even in the eating, then we do it with more heightened awareness. This is how we train. Okay? So we have to start doing that when you are in the retreat. We're not talking about, you cannot take this thing at home and to do it, and then somebody will think that you are suddenly become crazy. We can do it in a retreat here. Don't ask me at the end of the retreat, Bhante, everything here we do so slow, how are we going to do this so slow at home? At home we are not training. At home we have to go on with our lives. But we don't transfer what is from here to at home. Not everything. And also not everything from our home we transfer here. So it's different. So we have to act differently. We have to make the effort differently. So there, you heighten the awareness in the eating. Or when you're opening a door or closing a door. Normally we just open and close as we come in. No, we should not do it that way. We have to do it with carefulness, with awareness. You feel the handle is cold. You acknowledge that it is cold. You feel that you are pushing the door or you're pulling the door. Then you feel it, how you push the door. With alertness there. You put your mind into it. So again and again, small little things like even when you drink a cup of water, or from your tumbler, from your bottle, and all this drinking has to be done with full awareness, full alertness. Sometimes you may able to label it like drinking. If you can do that, well and good. Sometimes you forget to label it. It's not a problem if you forget, but it's very easy for the mind to forget. After you do it for a while, then the mind will go into some other thing. So the labeling, it's very helpful for the mind to anchor onto your objects or whatever that you are doing. You see what I mean by heightened awareness? So too, like in your walking too. In your walking, you start off with right step, left step. In the right step, left step, the heightened awareness is not so much yet. But this is where we begin to bring the mind back to the present. Then as we grow into it, into the lifting, pushing, dropping, especially on the third phase, then the heightened awareness become much more intense. Yeah, it become more intense. But you should not like begin in your walking. Straight away you do your very super slow. Then a lot of times you're going to build up a lot of mental tension. And that is not what we want. We want to bring you to clear, continuous alertness, deep alertness, but not the tension. But the tension and the alertness, they are very near to each other. So if you miss your cue, then you go into tension. Yeah. Yeah. So that later we're going to talk about, and another time we're going to talk about it, another talk. Yeah. So therefore, we need to have that. We need to have that heightened alertness. Yeah. Let's say in the sitting. Now in the sitting, too, the heightened alertness has to come in as much as best as you can. You bring that clarity of the mind, that continuous clarity of the mind from the walking. You go into the sitting. When you go into the sitting, you notice the rising and falling. You notice the rising and falling. Bring the whole alertness that you did it in your walking, in your activities like your biting, your lunchtime, and your opening the door, closing the door, doing all these small little things, and you accumulate them. Then when you come to the sitting, immediately the mind gets more brighter and clearer. And you can see the difference. Within the 2 or 3 days, if you really make the effort to do it, actually you can see the difference in your practice, in your sitting. So therefore, when we pay attention to in the sitting, don't sit there and just enjoy, present, so nice, so comfortable. Let me rest for 15 minutes. Then you relax. Then, okay, 15 minutes later, then only you start your rising and falling and nothing. No, you cool off the engine. You cool it off. You cool off the engine. And now you want to start to warm up again. No. You should bring the whole development that you have done in your walking right to the sitting. And the moment that you put your attention to your object in the rising and falling, you pay close attention to how they move. How they are rising and falling, you label them. And then you pay how they are getting long, short, fast, slow. If other sensation arises, take note of them too, precisely. Not just touch and go here, touch and go there. And just touch and go, there's nothing much you can do. There's nothing much in the progress there. So the heightened awareness, it is important. Sometimes the commentary, sometimes some talks, you may hear that the talk, they use the Pali word called apilana. Apilana. Apilana here, if you translate to English, it is translated as not floating. Is translated as not floating. The characteristic of a mindfulness is not floating. A lot of people will be like, what? Because sometimes the commentary is they mention the characteristic. They didn't tell you what is not floating. So you have to dig into it a little bit more. But of course, the practice, the meditation, the experience of meditation will become very helpful. Yeah? So heightened awareness and not floating, there are a difference in words. But at least during the practice, you must know that what is just surface and what is actually you are going deeper into it. Not floating, yeah? It goes into it. It's like they give the example in the commentaries. It's like a cork that is float on the water, or and a stone that it sinks down. So too, the mindfulness has to be sink down onto the object. So therefore, when you come into the meditation, when you come into, like, for example, like you go into a sitting meditation. When you do a sitting meditation, for example, the pain comes up, and you try to notice the pain. Some people, when they do sitting, when the pain comes up, it's like they look at it very far away. Pain, stay there, pain, stay there. So painful, stay. You're not watching it, you're not observing it. It's like you just don't want the pain to come to you because you can't take it. Yeah? You just want to be there. And then sometimes you just move a bit, the pain gone, then you're happy. That's not mindfulness anymore. Yeah. When the pain arises during in the sitting, they become the prominent object. They become a very clear object. Let's say the pain is in the knee right now. Yeah? So you shift your attention to the pain. And when you shift attention to the pain, you pay attention to the pain. How is the pain what is the characteristic of the pain, for example? Is it a hard pain? Is it a cramp pain? Is it a pulling pain? Is it a stretching pain? Or sometimes it may happen in the maybe in the buttock there, or in the back, or at the back, the spine. Then, whichever pain that arises, then you pay attention to it as clear as you can. You see how the pain getting more, then it getting less. Sometimes, but most of the time you're going to get more and more until you to your limit. But what I want is not how long you can sit with the pain. Not yet, at least now. What I want is that your technique is right on how to observe the pain. Because when you get your technique right, then we talk about prolonging, on how to note the pain. Some people, they can sit there for 1 hour, even the whole body is painful. They can sit there without flinching, without moving, without fidgeting, because of the trained state of mind. So it can be done. So all this can be done. So pay attention to the pain. Pay attention to the pain as much as you can. Then, therefore, you are deepening the mindfulness. The pain is actually a good object for development of the mind, actually, because it's strong. You don't have to look for it; it'll come and look for you. Right? It come and look for you. All you need to do is put attention there, and pay close attention to how the pain is. Right? So you're not pulling, or expanding, or it change from moving from one part to another part. Oh, I can't take it anymore. In the beginning part, perhaps you can only notice it maybe 5 minutes. Then that's your limit. After you start to train, you can start to go like 5 minutes to 10 minutes, 10 minutes to 15 minutes, and so on. Now, when you pay attention to these difficult objects like the pain, they are not easy. They are not easy. They will challenge you to your limit. So you have to firm up. You have to firm up your mind in order to notice this pain. Yeah? As I said, in the beginning part of the development, we are not expecting you to prolong it. We are expecting you to get the technique right. To get the technique right. Once you get the technique right, then there's a lot of things that you can do. A lot of things. Yeah. So you're in a way that you are heightened awareness on the observation, and yet you're not just on the superficial or just on the surface of a noting. Yeah? So you go deep into it, observe what is going on. If you've got the rising and falling, same also. Don't just sit there, rise and fall. Truly pay attention to it, how it rises, how it falls, how it moves, whether it goes fast, whether it goes slow, and so on. That is how we pay attention to an object of vipassana. Then, this is one thing about that area, how we develop that mindfulness. One area. Yeah? Now, another area of mindfulness is that it has that quality we call face-to-face quality, or confronting an object. Yeah? Confronting an object. Confronting an object means that when you put your mindfulness onto an object, say this time you're walking meditation, you're lifting, pushing, dropping. Yeah? Here, confronting means that the mindfulness will bring everything about your mind to go close to an object, face to face to an object. Yeah? You go face to face to an object. When it happens in that way, what will happen to the other state of mind? For example, you see, when you note an object, when you pay attention to an object, it's not just only mindfulness is there. There are several other states of mind are working together also. Yeah? There's concentration, there's a penetrating state of mind or the wisdom state of mind. There is a vitaka, vichara, or the mind that is directing onto an object. There is, what else is there? There is a number of other states of mind is there. So what will happen now? Theoretically, the object is one thing, the mindfulness is there, so it brings the mind close to the object. When it goes close to the object, the wisdom factor is the one that scrutinizes whether the object it's changing, the object is long or short and fast or slow and so on. Yeah. But this is theory a bit. Yeah? This is a bit of theory. A little bit of theory, at least we know how the noting mind works. But generally, when I talk, I just lump everything together. If not, it becomes too conceptual, and it makes the whole meditation become very confusing at times. So I don't want to go too much of this thing yet. Later, perhaps. So what I want to show to you is that mindfulness, it brings the mind close to the object. It goes right to the object, in front of the object. Then only you scrutinize things. And that is important, later part. Because it involves not only just mindfulness, but it also involves continuity of mindfulness, and also it will involve a balanced noting state of mind, a balanced noting state of mind. Not just only being there, but everything has to come into a balanced state. Clear, alert, balanced state. Not too much and not too little. Something have got to do with mindfulness. But that one, we'll leave it for another talk. What is important here is that the mindfulness goes directly in front of the object and pay attention to the object closely. Confronting an object. What else about mindfulness? So these, again here, you check for yourself. A yogi must able to check yourself whether you are mindful or not. Every time you do your walking meditation, your sitting meditation, you got to self-check. You got to self-check whether, am I mindful right now? Am I alert right now? Am I aware of what I'm doing right now? You're going to self-check. That means you self-check. You know the state of mind, then you're doing rightly. Yeah. Because sometimes, if you do not know the state of mindfulness, some yogis I've met in the past, they thought that they must be very tense up, and they must be until become whole body tense up. They think that that is mindfulness. And every retreat they come, they do that. They do that, and they did. I mean, it becomes a habit, and nobody undo it, And the yogi thinks that it's still right. So every time he goes into a retreat, he goes back with a migraine. You got to go back with, what do you take for a migraine here? Ibuprofen, or whatever, No, they go back with that. Yeah. And if you go back with those things, sooner or later, your confidence in the meditation will fade away. And you're not going to come back again. You're not going to come back again because there's no development, there's no clarity, except there's more and more suffering. So something is wrong. But the yogi thinks that it's still right. Yeah. So there's a lot of things within this practice that it hinge upon mindfulness. Yeah. Everything locks into mindfulness. There'll be times when you go into a practice even more further, if you advance in the practice, there will be days that your whole meditation goes haywire. Everything goes completely. How come 2 days ago everything is going smoothly, clearly, and 1 or 2 days everything is going all crazy inside there? All getting entangled inside, mindfulness, clarity, is everything not there. So how do you do it then, this time? Now all of us go through that. Because every mental state, every noting state of mind that we do is all impermanent. Nothing stays the same, right? So every time it drops, you know that mindfulness also is not there. At least you know when it's not there. But the thing is that what is important, you have the technique to re-arouse it again. Sometimes people goes high and then they goes down. Because they don't have the technique to re-arouse it, they get despair. And then when it goes down, and it goes down very long, then when it starts climbing a bit. But we don't want you to do like that. We want you to sometimes it goes down, it will definitely go down one way or another, but it quickly rise up again. Yeah? But we don't take you too long into it, because retreat will finish that time. So we want you to bring it down. We want you to know that how to re-arouse it again, to bring the mind up again by the technique, by the way that you know, and by the state of mindfulness is there. Then very quickly your mind becomes clear again. So take note of that state of mind. Take note of that mindfulness. See learn to feel the mindfulness together with observation on your this one, on your meditation object. Hmm? Now, another thing about this mindfulness is that when the mindfulness comes in, more, you won't see it in the beginning of the practice, but as the mindfulness become more sustainable, you'll see another quality of that mindfulness. And that quality is guarding the senses. Guarding the senses. What is the senses here? This is the five, especially the five external senses, and also the mind. Altogether 6. Guarding the senses means that the mind knows that, for example, I'll give you an example easier. For example, when you do the walk, lifting, pushing, dropping, and you do it carefully, you take note of the lifting, pushing, dropping carefully. You pay attention to it. Then you know that somebody is also beside you walking. Now, instead of looking at them, you know that they are there. But the senses is being guarded by that mindfulness, that it doesn't take into its detail of what is going on there. The mind quickly comes back to your own walking. You see what I mean? So that means the mind acknowledge the thing is there, but it's not attached to it. It's not attached to what is other people going on, what other people is doing. It stays. The mind knows it, but it's already come back to its lifting, pushing, dropping. Then perhaps as you walk, then somebody come in through the door. You acknowledge it, but you don't go and see who they are, what are they doing, then only you come back. If you go like that, that means your mindfulness broken. But when the mindfulness become more continuous, then you keep on walking, you're aware that they are there, but you are not interested in them. You're back again to your desire. So in a way, the mindfulness, it guards your mind. It guards your mind. It guards your mind from going into it. Because when you go into it, when you go into the whatever that other people is going through, or whatever others is doing, you don't realize that actually some craving and some delight also come with it, or some aversion may come with it. How come he's opening the door so loudly? No, you get irritated because your mind is not mindful at that time. No. How come he walks so fast? How? So a lot of things that we don't realize, that a lot of unwholesomeness comes in through our senses. So when the mindfulness able to guard on what you're doing, then it protects the mind from all the defilements from coming in, the kilesa. Or sometimes when you're sitting, you watch your rising, falling, or you watch your sitting and touching, you notice touching, sitting, then suddenly somebody open the door. You hear the sound, and you notice the sound, but you don't go and open your eyes and look at them. You're aware of that, you back again to the rising and falling. This is how mindfulness, as it becomes stronger, you begin to notice this quality. You can see it a bit if you really train here the next few days. You will see it for yourself. This thing will slowly come in. Now, some of us may have done some retreats before in the past. Maybe this way of Mahasi method. Or maybe you have done some other meditation retreats in the past. That's also perhaps concerning with mindfulness and so on. I mean, it's good. But when it comes to a more advanced level in the development of this vipassana especially. Yeah. As I said earlier on, mindfulness is somewhat the center of everything. Yeah. In a way that it will keep the mind balanced. When I say balance, this word balanced state of mind means that you're alert, but you're not too stressed out. Yeah. Yeah. You're calm, but you're not drowsy. Okay? Because calmness and drowsiness is next to each other. Clarity of mind, alertness of the mind, if you're not careful, it goes into attention. So you're calm, but you're not drowsy. You're alert, but you're not into a lot of thinking, a lot of attention, and so on. Yeah? So the mindfulness, as you grow in that mindfulness, it comes into that balance. That your mind is alert of noticing an object, and yet it is calm in the sense that calm, it is not being affected by thoughts coming in. It's not affected by not affected by thoughts, not affected by the sound, not affected by other things. The mind is there. Yeah. When you use the word calm, some yogis, your calmness and my calmness may be very different. Yeah? Because to some yogis, calmness means like, everything quiet, nice, pleasant, and that's it. And nothing else. To you, that is calmness. Whereas the way I describe calmness is that your mind is still noticing what is going on, but is not affected by thoughts and everything else. That means your mind is still alert now. And yet, it is not become too quiet and you do not know what is going on. That interpretation of your calmness, that is everything become quiet, you put that aside. Or you better don't fall into it, that's the best thing. Because you fall into that one, then that's about it. Your meditation goes. And you're not going to go any more further. Not only just in vipassana, but also in your samatha, in whatever meditation. It stops there. Yeah. So make sure your mind is alert. And don't fall into that too much calmness. Every time you fall into that too much calmness, everything is calm and nothing there. It's either you become too peaceful or the drowsiness has set in that you don't realize it. Yeah? Your mind becomes very calm. Nothing much. So this is where your mindfulness comes in. Your mindfulness begins to aware that that state of mind is too calm, too peaceful. You're not noting anything anymore. So what you should do, you make your mind, you energize the mind again, take note of your object of your meditation. For example, like take note of your sitting and touching. Keep on, go back to the bodily object. The bodily object is very helpful to re-arouse the mind, to re-arouse the mindfulness. Yeah? Then also that mindfulness, it, in a way that it prevents, not to say that completely the word prevent is right now, but generally, mindfulness being aware that if you go into too much thinking, you go into too much thinking, the mind knows about it. This is another quality called called non-forgetfulness. The Pali word is appamada. If we chant it in the morning, the last verse, appamada sampadeta. That appamada, it's, see, in the translate, if you translate, this one is non-hitless. Non-hitless. Pamada is hitless. Appamada is non-hitless. Hitlessness. So here is that the mind knows that when it goes into the story, into all the story that it goes into it, the mind aware of it, that you are going into all kinds of story, you are spinning a tale inside there, spinning a fantasy inside there, you're spinning a planning inside there. If you fall into it, all this story, as I said, there's no more mindfulness. But if you do not aware of it, let's say you keep on going and going and going and going and going, then the mind will go into what we call the restlessness. Restlessness means the thinking doesn't stop. It keep on going and go. You want it to stop, it doesn't want to stop. It just keeps spinning and spinning more and more and more and more thoughts. After that, you just give up on meditation. That is called a restlessness, restless mind already at this time. So we try not to go into that too much. So here is where your mindfulness is important. The mindfulness take note of, hey, thinking is there. The mind goes into thinking right now, as if like, you're standing out, and then you know that the mind is thinking there, and then the mind that knows the mind of the thinking mind right now. Yeah. So you try to aware of it as much as you can. Pull the mind out from those thoughts. As you pull the mind out from those thoughts and you come back to aware of what is going on, then mindfulness re-establish again. Now if you fall into that story, gone again. Because that story can be very nice, can be very pleasant. And you can go through a lot of emotion with this story inside there. You will go back into like your parents, your siblings, your children. Then all kinds of emotion will start to decide. All kinds of incidents that have gone through in the past, maybe joy, maybe sad, maybe everything inside here. So you go into a roller coaster ride inside there of emotions. So we try not to fall into it. But surely one of you, any one of you, or all of us, will surely fall into it one way or another, one time or another. So it's as best you pull your mind out as much as possible, go back to the body. In the later talks, in other talks, we will learn to handle that thing first. We will also handle that emotion as a meditation object. But right now, we don't do that yet. Because mindfulness is not properly established. You need to build up that mindfulness stronger in order for us to deal with more difficult objects, like emotional objects, like subtle thoughts, subtle emotions, subtle mental states. So therefore, in the beginning, we use the body. We use the body, we use the gross type of feeling. That is to say, like a pain, rising, falling, walking, opening the door, closing the door, eating, biting. These are more gross object. And that gross object is very helpful to arouse the mindfulness. So it will give you the balance automatically. The more mindfulness you have, the more the mind will able to balance itself. And that balanced state of mind is also another aspect of the whole vipassana, It's one of the aspects that all yogis have to learn somehow or another in the future. Yeah. Some people, some yogis, they don't understand what is this balanced state of mind. Their meditation is like they meditate like a bull, like a bull, or like a like a like a, a bull that is going into stampede. And they just charge and he lets go. There are yogis like that. They just meditate, and then you can see that in their faces. Every time they come in, they keep on pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And then they don't realize that they are over pushing until the whole mind gets into a lot of tension. Yeah? And that is not good. Some yogis, another type of yogi, they come also, they always come in with everything calm, peaceful, nice. Everything is calm. Then it's bordering between too calm and laziness and sleepiness is always there. Yeah. So the mindfulness is where it brings about to a balance. That the mind is alert but not too much. But calm and yet not too calm. Yeah? You'll see it in yourself. If you are a more experienced yogi, you'll see it in yourself. Yeah? But this state does not last. The problem is this state does not last. But we can prolong it. It's again, these are techniques, there are skills, how we can able to prolong it. Because you prolong it, therefore mindfulness or development or progress in the vipassana will take place. Let's see, what's the next thing? So far, can you all follow? Not too difficult, isn't it? I mean, the talk, not too difficult. The practice is another thing. Practice is another thing. So, this is how we understand the quality of that mindfulness. Because certain times of a yogi's practice, the different aspect or the different facets of mindfulness will appear to you. It's not always the same way. It's not always the same facet. It's like like you see a cube, got six surface. Not all the surface is the same, but it belongs to the cube. So mindfulness also the same thing. It's not always talk about presentness of mind only, but there are other aspects of the mindfulness are also equally important. And sometimes that other aspect, they become more clear and more prominent in your practice. So at least you recognize them too. Okay? You recognize them too. That you will go through with your own experiences. Yes? Okay. Yeah, that's right. Again, here, it's the same. The question is that when the concentration becomes like too much, especially when the concentration becomes too much, become too focused, over focus into something. When the mindfulness become over focused into, when the noting mind become over focused into something, then again the mindfulness will start to drop. So another quality of that mindfulness is called the flexibility of mind. And that flexibility will be connected to that your question. Yeah? Flexibility of the mind, what it means is that the mind is not stagnant to an object. Because, for example, some of you are doing in-breath, out-breath. When you do an in-breath, out-breath, take for example, you do take an in-breath, out-breath, in-breath, out-breath, in-breath, out-breath, in-breath, out-breath, in-breath, out-breath, and then after a while it becomes very quiet. Pleasant, nice. And hardly your in-breath, out-breath is there. Yeah. When you are not able to notice that in-breath, out-breath, especially in the beginning of your development, then there's something wrong with the practice already. The mind goes into calmness. You're not following the object anymore. Yeah? Yeah. So, in Vipassana, flexibility of the mind is also important. Flexibility, that means the mindfulness itself, it will provide that flexibility to you. Say for example, you notice the rising and falling. And then some itchiness occur in the background. Some yogis' mind, because they are so inflexible, so hardened, they just watch that rising and falling, and they just keep ignoring other objects. They keep ignoring, or they don't want to go into other object, or the mind cannot able to go to another object. So what happens is that when they take the object for too long, and then the too strong, the mind will go into a lot of concentration. It goes into become narrow and narrow. After that, everything gone. So what you should do for that type of this one, you should learn to re-observe another object. Push the mind to another object, which is clear enough. So the mind, if the mind is flexible, then you see that the mind is very alert. The mind is not like so stiff and cannot do anything. You will see the flexibility of the mind as the mind will learn to change object from one object to another object. During in the practice, if you can able to notice that the mind is changing from one object to another object, that is how Vipassana grow. You must, as I said yesterday, you must put away all the thought about your practice in the past, some other practice that you have done in the past, because it's totally not the same as Vipassana. Vipassana take up a multiple objects, not a single object. Although we have a primary object, but secondary objects are also important. So flexibility of the mind is also another quality that you know that the mind is mindful. That means you can able to watch rising and falling. Then if the pain arises, it can change from one rising to the pain, and let's say the itchiness arises afterwards, then you can able to go to the itchiness, then you can go back to the pain again. You see, there's a flexibility in there. That's how Vipassana grows. Even like, for example, we already trained we train that flexibility in the walking meditation. As you're lifting, pushing, dropping, these are three different objects. Although we think that it's a single leg, but it's a three different objects. The mind is going from one object to the pushing object to the dropping object. So when we train that, we don't let the mind becomes too stagnant with concentration. Understand what I mean? Yeah. So that is another quality. If you find that your mind is begin inflexible and it's too stagnant, that means the mindfulness is a bit dropping already at that time. And actually behind it is the concentration begins to go too much. But that one, perhaps you save it for another day. We can talk about it even much more. Then the next thing about mindfulness, which is also equally important. Just now, with all an hour's talk, we talk about the different qualities of the mind. As I said, you look at the mindfulness from a different facets, different aspect, because they will come up in your practice one way or another in a different time. This is one thing. Second thing that also is equally important is to arouse the mindfulness itself. Okay, we talk about the different type of mindfulness, but we haven't to talk about the arousing of mindfulness, because arousing of mindfulness follow a set principle. It follows a set principle. Everything that you do throughout the whole day, if you've been making the effort, it follows a set principle. And the set principle here is the what we call prominency of an object. Prominency of an object. That means the object is clearer than other object. Okay? The object is clearer than the other objects. Take for example again, while you're doing walking meditation, the feet is moving. The lifting, pushing, dropping, the feet is moving, right? Now, when the feet is moving, actually there are also other small sensations around the body. They're always there. But we don't take note of those things because we pay attention to the prominency of an object. So when we pay attention to the prominent object, the object, in other words, it's clear to you at that present moment, then you arouse the mindfulness. Yeah? Take for example when you're biting, chewing and so on, yeah? Biting, chewing, and that movement object of the mouth, they are very clear. Your buttock also still got sensation, isn't it? Maybe it's cold a bit there or warm a bit there, but you didn't take notice of them because they are not prominent object. So the biting is a prominent object, so you take notice of it. Now let's say, after you biting, then you feel that your buttock becomes cold and it really catches your attention. Then what you should do? Then you go to the next prominent object, which is the cold right now. Because that cold earlier on was not a prominent object, but it begins to grow and grow. Maybe 10 minutes later, it then it becomes a clear object. So when it comes to a clear object, your mind has to go there to take notice of that object. How is that coldness? For example, the coldness, it begins to spread, begins to grow more, begins to go less. That is how you take notice, prominency of an object. Take for example again, you turn on the tap. You turn on the water tap, and then you feel the water right now. Because everything is right in front of you, the coldness of the water becomes very clear object. So you take notice of cold. So when it's clear to you, you pay attention to it. Then after that, you take, for example, the water has changed into more warm water. Then the water come out, then you take notice of it too. And then it's warm. But perhaps there's itchiness at the back there. A little itchiness. You're aware of it, but it's not so prominent. But the coldness is more prominent. So you stay with that coldness. That's how we do. Whereas in the samatha meditation, anapana, especially those who are doing, you don't do it in this way. You just stay with that one object only. That's why it's very different from a proper vipassana meditation. So that's why, as I said, all your meditation in the past, you put it all aside first. You go back, okay, you can continue with that. But in the meantime, your mind has to catch hold of what is prominent in front of you or at that present moment. If the rising and falling not prominent anymore, and it goes rising, falling, and it starts to disappear. So what you should do? you go and look for something which is prominent, which is clear. Perhaps the touch can be clear. So you're not touching. Yeah? If you sit there, let's say, rising, falling is still clear. But your pain is clearer. So which one you should go? Now you're getting it. Exactly. Even one object is clear, but the another object is clearer. You go to that object which is clearer. This is how you arouse that mindfulness. Yeah? So one object is not clear. Any object is not clear. You can look for something that is clear to you. Normally, the walking is quite clear. Normally, lifting, pushing, dropping, it's quite clear. Yeah? But sometimes it may not be clear. So what you can do is that you change your speed maybe back to 2 phase again, back to 1 phase again. So if let's say in the right step, left step, in the first phase, you take notice of the right step, left step. Yeah? If it's clear to you at that moment of time, your mind is not running here and there. Don't quickly try to do the second phase. Stay with it first. Because that clarity, it begins to bring about that mindfulness. It begins to bring about that mindfulness. Then when you are ready, then you start to do your second phase. Lifting, dropping, lifting, dropping. But if you find that, when you do this lifting, dropping, the mind will keep on running. Mindfulness cannot able to stay there. So what you should do? Then you can always go back to 1 phase again. Then right step, left step, right step, left step. No? You see? That is how we pull the mind on the mindfulness. We just don't let it, just don't let it be like that. So perhaps that in the lifting, dropping, sometimes it may not be so clear. Mind is running, but sometimes you can go even more slower. Then the mind becomes clear. Then it still works. As long as it works, then good. It doesn't mean that you have to slow down or you have to go faster. It depends on circumstances at that moment of time. So you have to trial and error to see how the mind goes. So sometimes you go slower, the mind begins more able to follow what is going on. Then if it's able to follow, that means the mindfulness comes in again. So that means the principle here, again, as I said, is the prominency of an object. Once the object is clear to you, then the whole mindfulness comes in. Now, this prominency of an object, as the yogis develop, clarity of an object may not last for a long period of time. Sometimes it just lasts for a few seconds, it's clear. After that, it already changed. Another objects become clear, just for a few seconds. Then after that, it changes, another object will start coming in. And then another object, then another object, then another. As if like you are just chasing and moving with one object to another object. And you feel that this is so strange. Because you have never felt this before, perhaps. But this is exactly what Vipassana wants. How the development of Vipassana comes in. It's because you follow that clarity of the object. With that thing here and there, then it begins to the objects begin to reveal itself. Then you begin to see the impermanence part of it, the dukkha part of it, the anatta part of it, the non-self part of it. Slowly everything will start to unfold. So, the technique of how to arouse that mindfulness, it is important. So make sure that you know what is mindfulness. You know that your state of presence is there. Are you alert? Is there? Are you fully alert of what's going on? Are you able to catch hold of the prominent object of what is happening in your practice at that moment of time? Then you know its different quality. This will be very helpful for your Vipassana practice. Okay? Can try that? Try again tomorrow. Okay, we'll stop here for tonight. We'll continue the talk on the tomorrow night. Okay, we share merits. So. Now, at the end of the Dhamma talk, you say sadhu. Yes, 3 times. Yes. Okay, we take 1 or 2 questions. Short question. Anything?
Okay, so
Yeah.
I had some questions about last night, but also questions about tonight. So if you give me only one question, I'll ask questions about tonight. You said that if a yogi sees light in his meditation and he feels peaceful in his meditation, and sometimes it may not be a good thing. It could be a bad thing, or something might be wrong. But if a yogi sees that in his vision, he's getting teachings from like Buddhas or Bodhisattvas and great beings like that, how is that? How can you tell if it's a real or unreal?
No. All those things are creation of the mind. And you believe it. And you want to believe it because it's so special. That is dangerous. Dangerous. It looks like we are receiving Dhamma from something special. But it's not. It's all your creation of your mind. I've seen these things so many times.
So how can you tell?
Mindfulness. Again, mindfulness. The mindfulness aware that this thing arises and you not attached to it. And you go back to your main objects. If you stay with those objects, you want it again and again. Every time you sit down, you think you will look for your rising and falling and your pain. You won't. You want that again. And you want that again. Again and again and again and again for years. And any teacher would tell you, you do not want to undo it because the attachment inside there is so strong. Yeah.
He believes that's a good thing. So
That's the problem, Ignorance is very strong right now. And he doesn't see that there's a craving, a very strong craving inside there. Huh?
he's thinking he's getting instructions from Buddha, he's getting instructions from...
That's the problem, yeah. It's all creation of the mind. Fantasy and so on, and we believe this fantasy. Yeah. There's also mentioned, perhaps one of the talks, we'll talk about it. So many yogis get caught into these type of things because lacking of mindfulness. Okay? All right, so we share merits for tonight. Follow after me. Idang me bhavanang nibbanasa pachayo hotu. May my mental cultivation be a condition for the realization of Nibbana. Imang no punya bhagang sabba sattanang dema. We share these merits with our departed ones, with all beings and all the devas. Sabbe satta sukhi hontu anumodantu. May all beings be happy. May they rejoice in these merits. Sadhu, 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 sadhu.